Hey, you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for letting me have a moment of your time in your very busy life. I know that there's so much you could be doing, so much you could be listening to, and you chose to listen to this. And I really am so grateful. I'm so grateful. And if you have any questions, you want to continue on a conversation, you want to share a takeaway, please check me out on beit pod on Instagram. So it's BE, and then there's a fancy little underscore, IT, little fancy underscore pod. POD, but if you just type in Be It Pod, it will come up. Tag me in your takeaway from a podcast, and also it'll end up in the DMs and I can chat with you, or you can just hit me up in the DMs and chat with me. Tell me what you're working on, what's causing you to not be able to be it, because that's going to help me figure out our next guest to help you be it till you see it. And this week's guest is Katie Kerner-Miller, and she and I met a couple of years ago. Y'all, I remember meeting her, and we were both in a very similar place in our life, but different. She has literally helped train women to do physique championships, and she was one, and just gorgeous, blonde, such soft-spokenness, but she really believed that there was more that she wanted to do, because she really wanted to stop women basically not having self-love. She wanted them to have self-love. So she went on this journey to really figure out and deep dove into self-development, and in doing that, she found a way that she could help more women truly love themselves. And she also is a hypnotist, which is freaking awesome. So we talked a lot about that and how it helped her make a move to Denver. And so there's some manifestation in here. There's some mantra talk in here. And then there's also just the power of what can happen sooner than you think when you have a clarity around what it is that you want to be in this world. So dive in, check out Katie. There's some information where you can find her in the show notes. She is an amazing human. You will love checking out her posts on Instagram. They are inspiring and thoughtful. And so here we go after this brief message. Welcome to the Be It Till You See It podcast, where we talk about taking messy action, knowing that perfect is boring. I'm Lesley Logan, Pilates instructor and fitness business coach. I've trained thousands of people around the world, and the number one thing I see stopping people from achieving anything is self-doubt. My friends, action brings clarity, and it's the antidote to fear. Each week, my guests will bring bold, executable, intrinsic, and targeted steps that you can use to put yourself first and be it till you see it. It's a practice, not a perfect. Let's get started. All right, everyone. We've got Katie here, Katie Miller-Kerner. I'm so excited to see. Well, you're all not seeing her unless you're watching this on YouTube, but I'm seeing her face. We met almost a couple of years ago now, in a mastermind, and I was so drawn to her because you were definitely in a transition. You were really successful doing what you were doing, but you really felt called to change that. And you and I had a very similar issue that we were so busy doing the thing that we were doing that we couldn't really do the other thing. And so I'm excited to chat with you about what you're doing now, how you got there, and all the things. So Katie, will you tell everyone a little about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Lesley. I'm so excited to be here. I was getting ready today and I was thinking about those pictures we were taking on the rooftop at the mastermind. And I was just I'm so excited to just kind of see her face again and talk with her. But hello, everybody. Obviously I'm Katie. Lesley introduced me. I like to call myself a self-love coach, but it's basically what most people know it as is kind of like a life coach. I blend a little bit of business, but it's more about the energies behind business. Because if you're constantly going through these patterns and you don't know what's holding you back in your subconscious mind, it's going to keep repeating itself. And so I blend that with business strategy if people, want that help. Sometimes it just helps people who have anxiety. I'm also a clinical hypnotist, which I am obsessed with because it changed my whole life. And I'm sure we'll get a little bit more into that as well. That's basically what I'm doing in a nutshell.
I love this because I mean, we can talk about it because it's if people go through your Instagram, they're going to see it. You were a fitness instructor, like
Mhm.
totally fitness health person, and that you've transitioned to this hypnotist, and it couldn't suit you better. Like, absolutely love the journey that you went on. And I think so many people see themselves in a role, and they're probably they could be very successful in this role, but they're feeling called to change, and it's a little daunting. Like, I mean, I'm sure you can look back at that time when you were transitioning and that daunting time to go from fitness instructor, super successful, to, okay, I'm a self-love coach. I use hypnotism. What was going through your mind when you were trying to make that transition, and what made it easier for you to do that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you for bringing this up because I think it's you don't see this on social media, and these are the conversations that people need to hear because making a transition is scary. Can I swear on here, by the way?
You can swear.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's scary as fuck to make a
Yeah.
transition, and it's like you don't know, like it's not predictable. And you know, I when I started working through my own limiting beliefs and I discovered personal development, I'm like, there's so much more here. And basically, it became an addiction, this personal development. And that's why eventually I became a life coach. And I'm like, I want to help people make them feel how I felt, just up leveling. But I had a limiting belief that I couldn't be successful out of fitness. And that was like deeply rooted from my childhood. Like I got love. I had a beautiful childhood. My parents are amazing, but I got love and attention through athletics. I was a star athlete my whole life. Anything I did, I could pick it up super easy. And I was praised for that. And so that kind of led me into a career path down that. And so once I did the subconscious work, the limiting beliefs and really getting rid of this on a subconscious level through hypnosis and time techniques, I was able to release that and fully just make that pivot. So what was going through my head? I was scared as hell, but I was just putting one foot in front of the other. One thing led to another. I make a friendship. They recommend this book. This book leads me down a rabbit hole. And then I find a podcast through, it's just one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, I think that curiosity is like one of the best things. And also I can totally relate, I still do teach Pilates, but I remember like even transitioning. It took me a long time to transition to just being fully online, and it didn't need to, because I was holding on to, well, there's so much other competition out there, like with the stories we tell ourselves. And the pandemic, when the pandemic happened, I was 50% virtual, 50% in person.
Mhm.
And when the pandemic hit, I was like, well, this is what you wanted. And it's so
Yeah.
funny because like in 1 hour, I transitioned everything. And what didn't transition, I was like, well, that wasn't going to transition anyways. And it's just really funny how we can like build something up to be a little bit bigger than it is, because in our head it is, and it is so scary. But most of us listening to this are not brain surgeons. We're not it is not, the decisions we make are not actually life and death. And I think by going through that self-development rabbit hole, you start to realize, you hear these things, you start to say them to yourself, and you're like, oh yeah, no, I can do that. And I love that you brought up your childhood. I think a lot of people probably, if they look back at their childhood now that they're a little older, and maybe not like in those teenage 20-year-old years, were like, my parents did this to me. It's like, on average, most people's parents are the best they could. And, now we're doing this like unparenting thing. And I too like got so much of what I got was like affirmation in when I was successful, and when I like got a new role, or I got promoted to first base, like, and I was first chair, and like all these things in band, which is kind of crazy that I ever did that. And so, if I'm not first, then is anyone going to notice? Is anyone going to care? So I totally understand that. Um, I want to chat like, so you recently moved. We both have moved. You've moved a little sooner than I did. What did that move represent? Because I feel like you did a lot to make that move really powerful for yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say something about oh yeah, so before I touch on that, I just wanna I think it's so cool because we were both in that space of transition when we met each other.
Yeah.
And so I've seen it raw with you and like now you're it's just super cool. But and I'm just so happy for you. But um
Oh,
with this move, it so before I moved, it's when I discovered intentional manifestation. Like we are all like master manifestors. We've been manifesting everything in our life, but when you learn how to intentionally manifest, I was like, like mind blown. Like I can have whatever I want. And so that represented my first intentional big manifestation. And it was crazy. Like my husband and I always wanted to move to Denver or Colorado, and we didn't know how because he's in corporate. And so, and I was half in person, half online as well. And so, I mean, that was obviously a little bit easier, but he was like, he was starting his job and he was like, I'm just gonna get so good where they allow me to work remote. But he wasn't quite there in his career yet. And we did so many different things. Like I changed all my passwords to like Colorado and like the age I wanted to like be here by. I I like would say every morning in my journal, I'm so grateful for waking up to the mountains every morning. And like my husband and I would talk like it was a certain thing, not like we'd be like, oh, when we moved to Colorado, like let's get a new couch. Like we didn't know. And then he comes home one day and he was like, this is the craziest thing. He was like, this Denver company wants to buy a portion of my company. And and he was new. So like it that was the crazy part, but he was new. So like they were gonna send someone out there, but it wasn't gonna be him. But he kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And it ended up being him. So we moved here and it really was like a joint effort between my husband and I. It was cool.
okay. This is amazing. I love this so much because it's so true. Like I think people don't think they're manifestors, but they don't realize it's because sometimes they're manifesting the things they don't want because that's where they're putting their energy and focus. Like, I don't want this to happen, or I don't want to end up alone, or I don't want to do this. Like that's where they're manifesting, but they're not manifesting what they actually want to happen.
Yeah.
And I love that you went through the effort of changing your passwords. Like that is like commitment, but also just think about every time you have to put a password in, like that means like it's like you're always thinking about it, right? Instead of just having like a post-it by your desk or something that you could like ignore. It's like, no, I got to type my password in. So it's got to be this, right? I think that's so cool. And also, for people who are in relationship who think like, oh, I can't do that because like my partner's in corporate or
Yeah.
he's got this really good job. It's like, well, if both of you want something together, then like you never, like you can't, you have to let the universe surprise you a little bit but you have to let them know what you want, And so not to get super woo, but like Brad and I both wanted to move to Las Vegas. We wanted to have space. We wanted to do this. We sat down and we like literally dreamt up what each room in our house would represent, what it would do in it. And we were like, we want to move this summer. That was the goal. And I said, I want to move by June 1st. I was like, I cannot live here anymore. And like, you can't just, anyone knows who buy a house, you actually can't buy a house in 9 days. There's like steps to go through, but in our unique situation, we saw the house and 9 days later we're moving in, and this is our house. And so I really do believe like anything is possible by dates if you like are fully all in and you're not letting anything hold you back. And I remember we drove out here on Memorial Day in May, and we looked at houses and we cried in the Whole Foods because we're like, this is supposed to be the dream. And none of these houses represent we have to have the music/podcast room. There has to be a room for the Pilates studio. There's a guest room, then there's the office, and then there's our room. And we'd go to look at these houses and yeah, they had all the rooms, but like none of them would fit what we needed. Right. But we refused to believe that like was it. So we drove to the part of Vegas that actually made us want to move here. And we were sitting there, and this girl looks at us, and she's like, we were talking about how we're looking at a house, and she's like, oh, okay, I'm too young to buy this house, but this is my dream house. If you buy it, you have to let me be your assistant so that I can come visit this house, right? This is a random girl, probably on drugs, but like sent from the universe for sure. And she comes and she shows us this house, and it looks like Palm Springs. It looks like exactly the kind of houses we wanted, but we didn't want to live in California anymore. And so we didn't buy her house, but we did look in the neighborhood that her house was in. And that's how we found this house. And 3 days later, we were like getting a virtual tour of this house. And then we moved in.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. That just reminds me of like being open to receive. Like you could have just said like, screw it, like, and you're like being open to like receive like meeting that girl and like her telling you about this neighborhood. So that's super cool.
I think I think that's a really interesting thing that you bring up. And I think a lot of people have trouble receiving. I don't know, maybe you're in the self-love business. Like, do you think where do you think that comes from? Or do you think that's a common thing that people feel like they have to do it themselves so they can't receive help from others?
I think like people just get so caught up like being open to receive is part of just like relaxing into it and like looking for different opportunities. And they just get so caught up in their goal that they're not being, I don't know if this is really answering, like being open to receive money is a good example. Like maybe you were expecting money to come in this way, but maybe it comes in with 5 year current clients re-signing. You know what I mean? But you were
Mhm.
looking for 5 new clients, but actually, you received the money that way instead. And that's just being open to receiving like, hey, do you want to continue coaching? Kind of thing. So, and you can apply that to any point of your life. Like, I just see that so like visible with you. It's like you guys could have like said quits, like while
Right.
you were crying in Whole Foods or wherever you said you were. Is that where
Yeah.
you
Yeah, no, I mean, we went to a Whole Foods to get some food, and and because we're like, okay, we know Whole Foods. This would be our neighborhood Whole Foods. And we were just like, this is not even like our neighborhood Whole Foods. And what is this and what's happening here? And but it's true, like we didn't call it quits, and we kept going. And I think that's true for a lot of people, is that like sometimes they hit the obstacle and they take it as the sign that this isn't the thing. Like, your husband could have been like, oh, well, I'm still new, and they said no, I can't have it, and he could have just stopped, but instead he like kept going and kept looking for a way. I think that's I think we sometimes we just quit too soon, or we close our mind off to other ideas because we get so set on the one way, like you said. um when it can't, like, now that you're fully, self-love coaching and like doing your hypnotism, um what was, can you describe it a little bit, like what it was like did you quit fitness full altogether? Did you transition slowly? What did you do? And are you glad you did it that way? Or like looking back, would you have changed anything?
Yeah, so I did a transition, and for my personal journey, it was everything, because I needed to become the person that could be like a really good self-love coach. So I was like bodybuilding coaching because I'm a retired professional like bikini competitor. So I was like, that's how I started my business, and that's where like the booming like success came from originally. And then I was like, this is so dumb. Like I'm so over bodybuilding. Like, let's do something like lifestyle. And so that was called the Fit and Free Lifestyle Method. It blended personal development with like more lifestyle fitness. And that was my income, like my business for like 2 years. And like literally
Wow.
like, and then people started reaching out and asking me, like I had always felt like I was jealous of my friends who were doing self-love coaching or like life coaching. And I was like, why am I so jealous of them? Like, it's because I knew I could do it. And so people started reaching out and asking for just mindset coaching. And I was like, it was just like kind of overwhelming response. And I was like, oh my gosh, I guess this is my sign. And it was weird. It was kind of like, I know I like, this is going to sound super like woo woo, but like, I know I was some sort of life coach or speaker in a past life, because it was just like a knowing. And I started offering it. It was called mindset coaching before I officially got like my 5 certifications. And it's like just crazy the amount of stuff I knew before I officially got certified. I look back, I'm like, how did I know all of this? But yeah, that was kind of the transition. And I needed to learn all the lessons to have those lessons to give to my clients, kind of thing.
I love that. I think oftentimes we want so badly to get there faster, and look, I'm all about being it till you see it for sure. But I think sometimes we're like trying to get there so fast that we miss out on the life that actually is going to lead you to being the version of yourself that's supposed to be there. So I think thank you for highlighting that, because it's really true. I remember when I was in, I think it was like the 6th grade, and I so badly wanted to get out of, I just was in, as a child, I was like, I am an adult and I need out of this. This is not where I'm supposed to be. I grew up in a really small town. I'm like, I don't fit here. I don't belong here. Like, this is something about this is really wrong. Obviously all of that was to help me realize like, well, who I am now, which is like making sure people feel like they belong. And I remember this story, and it was about a little boy who got this like lucky string. And if he pulled on the string, it would like skip ahead. So he like pulled on it and he skipped a couple grades, and then he pulled on it and he skipped a couple more years, and he pulled on it. And all of a sudden he like, anytime he was like, oh, I really want to be there. I want to be that. And he kept pulling on it. He got to where he wanted to be. He got ahead like so many years. But he didn't experience any of the life that led him there. And like, so I think that it's really cool of you to highlight that like the transition was so key, because it made you learn the lessons you needed to be the best version of what you're doing right now. Okay. I'm sure everyone is wanting to know about hypnotism, because I know that any hypnotism I saw, I have a friend who does hypnotism. So I do now know that it's not about like making people quack and bark like a dog and do funny things on a stage. But can you kind of go into like why someone would do hypnotism and like that is? Because I'm sure curiosity is really piquing for people.
Yeah, I love it. So hypnosis, it blew my mind. Like, I had been trying to hit this income goal for so many years in my business. I'd be like $50 away, literally. Like, it was a subconscious thing. $200 away, $500 away, whatever, super close, but I could just never hit it. So that was a limiting belief. And within, I think I was using my custom hypnosis for 15 days and I hit the goal. So it was just bizarre to me. I was like, I've been like, since I was running my business in like way many years before, but basically it's so to change a neural pathway, there's a few things that have to happen. So repetition is one thing. So like when people use gratitude and affirmations, that's great. That's a great way to supplement your journey, but you need to repeat for a long time to actually change that neural pathway. With hypnosis, you can get there much faster. So our brain waves right now are probably in beta, maybe gamma, which is like a heightened perception, probably beta. But in hypnosis, it takes the brain waves down to theta. So that is right when you wake up and right before you fall asleep, your brain waves are in there. So your brain is more suggestible. That's why all these like personal development gurus, they want to tell you to first thing in the morning, meditate, because your brain is more suggestible. It just kind of strips the logical mind a little bit. We can implant some suggestions and you will act on them, because the subconscious mind, as you probably know, is approximately 95% of our actions. So that's the value in hypnosis. Like, why wouldn't you want to implant suggestions like direct? It's a direct conversation with your subconscious mind. you can't do that right now. I can't have a direct conversation with your subconscious mind right now unless I put you through a, the phase where I take you down into hypnosis. I
So
talk a
cool.
lot with
This
my
is so
hands, by
cool.
the way.
I love it. Anyone listening, her hands are wild and crazy, but don't worry, the YouTubers will be able to see it because I'm a hand talker and I have to be really careful because I have rings and like I hit things. So
I just get
I
excited.
love this so much because I've talked about this on the podcast before with people. Like our subconscious mind is also really malleable, but it takes so much repetition because it doesn't also forget those other things. Like you have to do this. And so there's a lot of studies on hypnosis. And then I have a friend who's a doctor, and there's like a bunch of studies on ketamine and like microdosing, which is a whole other thing. And both, it feels like hypnosis, like the ketamine, can speed up that process of change in the pathways of way we think things through, so that it's not this like constant mantra saying thing that is hard to do when like you are in it and you're in that limiting belief. So when you put someone in hypnosis, is it like an hour, like a half hour, like, and then how are they hypnotizing themselves afterwards? Like what's the
So
thing?
yeah. So first I want to say you're complete 100% awake in hypnosis, even though your body will be like, the cool thing about it is when I take someone through hypnosis, and when I've been through hypnosis, you don't feel any different than a deep meditation. But when I pull you out of it, you're going to be like, whoa, my body is more relaxed than it's ever been in an awake state. You're in full control. It's not entertainment. It's nothing like you see on stage. So it depends. So I've developed like my own practice within my certification. So I use my certification plus my knowledge to kind of create a custom hypnosis experience. And one is, yes, getting suggestions, but like the other one is using something called time techniques to release. And it's crazy when you strip the logical mind, you can get to the root of the problem. So I can ask my client, when they're not in hypnosis, what are your limiting beliefs that are coming to the surface? They can tell me some. And then the next session, I'll take them through hypnosis and ask them what their limiting beliefs are. And they're completely different. And they know exactly where it came from. So it's super cool.
That is something that's so cool because I like my therapist is like a somatic leadership coach as well. And so a lot of my therapy is because of it's my limiting beliefs and my own leadership skills. And then, but we always do some stuff where we drop into something and it's like more relaxing because she's like, okay, well, where do you think this is coming from? And I'm like, I don't know. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm paying you a lot of money. Like you tell me where it's coming from. That's my response. I'm like, girl, this is not going to work. But now, since that first, I'm like, look, I don't know. I don't want to, I need to, I don't, honestly, it's not like I don't care. I just need to get to the root of the problem so I can start solving it because it's holding me back. And she does a lot of work, not hypnotism specifically, but really trying to figure out like where in the body do I feel it? Where is that? And like, where's the time? And I feel like that's really helpful, but I feel like hypnotism in a way could really, I mean, like you said, you did it in 2 weeks, you hit your money goal. So like you're still going about figuring out what the problem is. You're not covering it up. You're just solving it much faster and getting over it much faster, which I think like who doesn't want to expand time in that way?
Yeah. So I never answered your question, but like the induction phase that I do is probably about 15 minutes. And then whatever I decide to facilitate after could range from 10 to like maybe 40 minutes. So it's just a custom thing. What was I gonna say? I just forgot my train of thought before.
Like while it comes back to you. So when people work with you or when they work with the hypnotist and it does what you do, is it like they come regularly or they do it once and then they like do it on their own? Can you hypnotize yourself? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm actually creating a custom hypnosis track for my next goal. I've been kind of
Cool.
writing it up, figuring it out. It's different. So I have one client who's really trying to release these limiting beliefs and get to the root of them. And she's getting the things that we're pulling to the surface are very abstract. So I'm just kind of recording them and trying to like link things together. So that is like a series. Like every other week she comes like, and I kind of like take her through that. But most people, they want an achievable outcome. So we'll do 2, release and then suggestions implanted.
Okay. Yeah. I think this is really so because I believe that, like you've done it, like you changed your password, you journaled that you were waking up to the mountains, like that is being it till you see it, like 100%. But I think a lot of people can go, yeah, Les, I like totally hear you. You keep saying it, but what about this? Or I've got this, you don't, this is happening. And that's like all these limiting beliefs. And so I do think that like hypnotism could be this awesome way for people to get the limiting beliefs out of the way so that they can be it till they see it, which is super, super cool. I love this so much. Okay. So Katie, before I ask you, how people can, like some tips that you have for people to be it till they see it. Where can people follow you, find you, DM you, all that stuff?
Yeah, so I am the most active on Instagram, of course, probably like everybody. My Instagram name is a K, the letter K, the letter T, Miller, Kerner after. So Katie Miller-Kerner.
Perfect. Everyone, please check her out, follow her. I love her post. You learn so much in a post from her and you'll be definitely inspired. All right. So I truly believe that, people can be inspired and they can be like, okay, cool. She went from fitness and like thriving to now she's a self-love coach and a hypnotist. And you did it in like a couple of years. So that's actually not a long time. But the inspiration is enough, but like transformation is what I'm really about. So what's a tip that you would, a tip or two that you'd suggest that people could do right now?
Yeah, so something I'm really leaning into lately is writing down a goal that you have. This could be a short-term goal or a long-term goal. So let's say, I don't even know. So let's say your goal is to pivot in your career, kind of like, making it relevant to this podcast. Say your goal is to pivot in your career. And then you'd write that down and then ask yourself, or do I believe I can have this? If your logical mind says yes, keep digging. Does your body tense up anywhere as you say yes? And then take note of that. Where did it tense up? And then write down the thoughts, the beliefs that came up. But I can't be successful in a different industry. And then I want you to invalidate that belief. Katie made a pivot. You could use me to invalidate that belief that you don't think you can be successful in a different industry. Katie made a pivot from this podcast, made a pivot, and she was, just as successful as she was in fitness. And use other people, or maybe you made a pivot in something that had nothing to do with your career, but maybe you were like a lacrosse player and you switched to swimming and you were just as good. So use that to invalidate your beliefs that are coming up and then continue to work through them.
Oh, I love this. Oh, I love this because so many people are like, okay, put your goals down where you can see them, and even like the next thing could be like, what are the first 3 steps towards this? But, like asking yourself if you believe it and then noticing where you hesitated or tensed up or took a pause or maybe what part of you isn't, and then invalidate that negative thought so that, and you can just keep doing that. And that will be one way to get to the root of it. Cause I'm sure there's some repetitive thoughts that come through. Yeah. So cool. Katie, thank you so much. It's so good to catch up with you. This is what's so fun about the podcast. I'm like, I can just talk to friends that I haven't seen in a while. And also get to know what they're doing so well. I get to be in Colorado really soon. So hopefully I can see you when I'm there and we can do teasers on a rooftop again. Everyone, please do us a humongous favor. Make sure that you let Katie know what your takeaways were. Screenshot this podcast, share it, tag us both, tag Beit Pod and KT Miller-Kerner, right? And let us know, share it with your friends who need to hear it, because that is how other people can be it till they see it. Thank you everyone for being here, and I'll see you soon. That's all I got for this episode of the Be It Till You See It podcast. One thing that would help both myself and future listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a review. And follow or subscribe for free wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, make sure to introduce yourself over at the Be It Pod on Instagram. I would love to know more about you. Share this episode with whoever you think needs to hear it. Help us and others be it till you see it. Have an awesome day.
Be It Till You See It is a production of As the Crows Fly Media.
It's written, produced, filmed, and recorded by your host, Lesley Logan, and me, Brad Kroll.
Kevin and Belle at Disenyo handle all of our audio editing and some social media content.
Our theme music is by Ali at Apex Production Music, and our branding by designer and artist Gianfranco Cioffi.
Special thanks to our designer Jaira Mondal for creating all of our visuals, which you can't see because this is a podcast, and our digital producer Jay Pedroso for editing all the video each week so you can.
And to Meredith Kroll for keeping us all on point and on time.